how many herps can you find in about 3 weeks in Belize? Well, that's what we're going to figure out today. So I just got back in from a trip to Belize. Jesus, I go back every single year. And this year we brought down a group for conservation tours, and then I had about 2 weeks of vagabonding and research. So I've been debating on how the best way to show you what I've found and talk about it. And I realized the best thing to do is honestly just show you my iNaturalist. I typically try to upload every single herp that I find when I'm in Belize. I am striving to be the #1 observer and identifier for herpetofauna in Belize. So this season ended up being about 100 observations from, I believe the final count was 32 species. Some individuals weren't uploaded here, but hey, that happens. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from day one, the very first herps that I found in Belize, and we're just going to go through all of them. I'll be telling you stories along the way, and this is going to be super informal. If you like these style of videos, please let me know. If you're new to the channel, hi, I'm Dylan. I am a biologist, and I do a lot of work down in Belize. So when we brought down our group, I really didn't have too many days beforehand. Normally I come in a little bit early and then just kind of goof off for a bit. But this trip, I went down pretty much the same day the groups got there. And we first found this black spiny-tailed iguana. So these are a iguana species in Belize. Of course, they don't normally look like this. They're usually quite a bit larger. This was a young one that we found. So here's a pretty good representative picture of a large one. And these are introduced in the United States. In Belize, they are a native species, Tenosura similis. It was a little bit of a weird one. I hadn't really found too many young ones, and I'm still haven't gotten the community suggested ID on this. So I might be wrong, but I can't see any other lizard that this would be, because green iguanas are also native and they look a little bit different. But it was a pretty cool start. We found this at the TEC, the Tropical Education Center, which is attached to the zoo. We are not going to go through every single individual one by one. I just want to show off the kind of cool ones. So we did a little bit of herping around the zoo and the zoo property, the TEC. We found Stouffer's tree frogs, which is a newer taxa for me. Just most of the work I've done hasn't been where the Stouffer's are, so a little bit different. But we do find a lot of these Leptodactylus species, neotropical grass frogs. I believe these were labialis. These are really cool, very, very common, but yeah, neat. So throughout the trip, we did a lot more than just herping. We actually went out, we did manatee watching, we went snorkeling, did a whole bunch of bird watching, but I typically don't iNat those for no real reason other than I'm just trying to focus on my herps. But we did do a herp walk one night. We didn't find too crazy much. We got some anoles, including the Biprocatus, the neotropical green anole, which is just a fantastic specimen. I mean, they are very large, beautiful green anoles, and you often find anoles sleeping on the leaves, just like this. And we also found, I was really happy that we found the Taylor's leaf frog. You can also still call them the red-eyed tree frog. They had a species split back in 2019, so the true red-eyed tree frog, Agalichnus calidrius, is really found in like Costa Rica, I believe Nicaragua, Honduras, places like that. And they elevated the subspecies Taylori to full species status, so that's why it's now Taylor's leaf frog. And yeah, you can kind of tell a little bit the greens are a little bit different between the two. But so now if you're in Belize and you find a red-eyed tree frog, it is the Taylor's leaf frog. And they're fairly common if you know where to look for them. We often find them around rototanks, which are just like tanks for storing rainwater. And we got a few that night. There were a couple other herps that we found with the group, nothing too crazy noteworthy. But after the group, I was actually invited to go on an expedition with the Belize Karst Habitat Conservation. They are doing these incredible surveys out in, well, Belize Karst Habitat. And they needed a herpetologist. A friend of mine just happened to be on the bus, and I just happened to be sitting next to him, and he happened to invite me. So we uploaded a decent amount of observations from that outing. I was extremely happy to find, let's see. Hold on. Where are my observations from that night? Okay, no, they're here. They're here. Okay, weird. Some of the stuff is a little out of order. That's weird. That's TEC, that's TEC. Okay, yeah, here we go. So the first night we went out and we found a lot of Mexican Smoliska baldini, also called Mexican tree frogs. They are fairly variable in color, but there's not that many tree frogs out there in Belize that are hard to mistake the Mexican tree frog for. We also found plenty of the giant toad. So these are another one of those recent splits. What you're finding nowadays in the herpetofauna taxonomy is that there are splits between South America and Mesoamerica, or Central America, depending on where you draw the lines, as well as many splits within Middle America. So the giant toads used to be considered the cane toads, some people still call them Bufo marinus, Rhinella marinus, but now in Belize they are Rhinella horribilis, and they are pretty, pretty hard to miss. They have these giant parotid glands. See this big glands? I'm not trying to make it scroll, but the big glands right behind the eyes. They're also massive, massive toads. So they're a pretty easy one to identify, and also stupidly common if you're in the right areas. So found a lot of those. A few of these other rain frogs in the genus Crowgaster. This one is probably I need to double check. So I thought this would be Crowgaster chalk, but I know there's something with the eyes. I believe it is Laticeps, the big-headed rain frog, but I just need to double check. This is a good reminder that I need to double check this one. But it is probably in the genus Crowgaster. But yeah, Crowgasters are one of my favorites. They are just really unique looking. They kind of just look a little different than other frogs. In fact, I could probably show you some later on. But yeah, we found some other frogs, which I'll talk more about Julians and the Lithobates species later on. But one of my favorite finds was this Hernandez's helmeted basilisk. We actually found two on the same plant, male and a female. I believe this was the female. These guys are super ancient looking, Corytophanes. Locally, they're also referred to as the old man's lizard. There's a local legend that if the lizard is on the tree and it spins around 3 times, you will be lost in the woods forever. This is because the helmeted basilisk's behavior is to be on very thin branches and circle around avoiding predators. So if you find one that's alert and trying to avoid you, it'll actually just kind of follow you around like this on the branch, so that it's always behind the branch and its eyes are just kind of sticking out. It's a super fun behavior that I've seen a few times. It's really, really unique. But yeah, they have this beautiful helmet on them that gives them their name. And there are 2 species of the Corytophanes, the helmeted basilisk. You have this one, the Hernandez's, but also you have Cristatus, which is I don't remember the common name. Did I find one? I did find one on this trip. Anyways, forget the common name. But that was really one of the best finds. We did get a lot of different anole species, which were really neat. The anoles in Belize are very difficult to identify properly. So just for reference, I'm going to show you 2 different ghost anoles. Ghost anoles are super, super common. Basically, you ID all of the anoles based on their scales on the venter, on the bottom of the lizard, as well as on the top. So the ghost anole has let me make sure I'm doing this right. Yes. So the ghost anole has keeled scales on the ventral surface and the dorsal surface, while the smooth anole has keeled ventral scales and then smooth dorsal scales. So these were identified out to be the ghost anole based on scalation. So the keelness is a little bit easier to see here on this individual here. The keel is like a little ridge in the middle of the scale. But you see the color, you see the pattern of this individual anole. Well, this is another ghost anole, so exact same species, literally found in the same area too. So you really cannot use color and pattern to identify the anoles. They are extraordinarily variable, where that last one was kind of just a brownish color, and this one has this gorgeous stripe going down the middle. I mean, it's insane, the variation. Again, you tell by scales. And there's some other species, like the scaly anoles. So this was a lesser scaly anole, Anolis uniformis. And look at the scales on the back. So notice how on the back they're enlarged. I can zoom in a bit. They're enlarged and they're keeled. This is how you tell that you're looking at a scaly anole. And you can tell there's lesser and then there's greater scaly anoles. There's lots of different little scale variations, but what I usually look for is the dewlap. The lesser scaly anoles have this dewlap that is pink with a very dark blue circle. So again, the anoles are super difficult to ID in Belize, especially from like iNaturalist pictures. You need really good pictures to ID them, which we don't always have. But yeah, so sometimes if I didn't know, I just put it as the genus Anolis and moved on with my life. But that was an extraordinarily fun trip with the Belize Karst people. It was some people that I've met once or twice, and then some people that I've been wanting to meet. So I had a fantastic time. It is pretty likely that I'll be back at some point helping them out, because I just also thought the property was really cool. You had to hike in about an hour and a half hike with all your gear in through the jungle. It's actually really close to some really popular tourist sites. So I just thought it was an incredible time being out there and just sleeping in a hammock, herping, birding, and trying to figure out our rations. So this was after the group, and then after the conservation tour I did with Belize Karst Habitat, and I went back to Toucan Ridge Toucan Ridge Ecology and Education Society, excuse me, where this is when I did the majority of my herping. This is really where most of the taxa came from. So up until this point, it was an extraordinarily dry, wet season. Hadn't rained for weeks, and you could tell everything was dried out. But my first or second night back, we got a little bit of rain, and I went down. And oh my god, we got all the big species. We got the blue-spotted Mexican tree frogs, one of my favorites. I've done lots of studies with them on their diet, on their development. There's also, is there a comment on this? Yes. So, yeah, that's a frog we'll actually talk about in a second because it is wild. I couldn't really understand what was going on there. But we got them. We got our Browns frogs. We got our Crowgasters. Again, I was mentioning the Crowgasters. This is one of my favorites. This is likely Crowgaster sabrinus, just based on that vertebral stripe. All the ones in the trees property have it. But there is some weird Crowgastery going on. So let's actually just talk about that right now. So there's a frog that I have been struggling to ID. So I mentioned it on this one, but let me see where the upload is of the second one. So I've actually had trouble with this frog before, and I feel like I solved it, but now I'm not sure. Oh, did I not even upload the second one? It would have been in hand, here we go. So this toad here, frog, it does kind of look like a Crowgaster sabrinus, but something was looking a little bit weird with it. So I picked it up and started looking at all the characters. Normally you look at the eye coloration can actually tell you what species it is. You start looking at their toes to see if there's anything keratinized. But this toad has this right here, this frog, a ventral disc. So this is the character that's throwing me off because there is a frog with a ventral disc. It is Leptodactylus. It's either labialis or melanotus. I should know that. I'm pretty sure it's labialis, the white-lipped rain frog. But sabrinus isn't noted to have this disc here. And the characters of this frog don't work for the other Leptodactylus species. And I have searched every single field guide I can get for what other frogs have this, and Crowgaster sabrinus is not it. There are other Crowgaster species on the property, but they are not noted to have this either, and the other characters do not match. So I've been really struggling to figure out what this is for a good while now. And the fact that I found it now multiple times just adds to the confusion. So this is a frog that next time I find it, I have fantastic pictures of all of the characters, but I am going to, bring it back and figure out what the hell it is because I am so confused. But yeah, it's been really, really tricky. If you know what it is, please let me know. So the first night we got that rain too, and I found 3 salamanders. Okay, now normally I would say this is the rufescent salamander. However, When I uploaded these to iNaturalist, I got a correction saying that, hey, these are actually the nymph salamanders, Belitoglossa nympha. So looking in the literature, what we found is that it used to all be rufescents, but then they actually split them up into the rufescent salamander and the nymph salamander. Now, the crazy thing is, you cannot tell the difference between them. They are morphologically identical, or indistinguishable, is what they say in the paper. But they put the range of the nympha into Belize. So there are no rufescent salamanders in Belize, according to more recent papers. But I will also say that every time I've uploaded a rufescent salamander, people are always saying this just looks weird. The tail length is really weird. There's just something going on. It's very likely this is a new Belitoglossa species in the rufescent group. There's a lot of cryptic speciation, meaning species that are really difficult to tell apart based off morphology. And this is something I really want to get some genetics done for. So that's a project in the future. I really want to do a lot of genetics work in Belize. I think that is something critically overlooked. So yeah, we found 4 of them, and I even got video of them doing a really interesting behavior. It was this one right here, actually. I don't have it uploaded, but I have it on video rubbing its nasolabial grooves along the leaf. What's cool about that is those are chemosensory organs on the front of their snout, and they actually use it to, well, sense chemical cues. Salamanders in this family are lungless. They don't have lungs, so it's a lot harder to inhale without lungs. So they actually have to rub it on surfaces to pick up chemicals, pheromones, and really anything else to sense in the environment. Now, other species and other genera in this family do use this in courtship displays. However, it's not really well documented for this genus, for Belitoglossa. So I recorded it. I have really great footage from multiple angles, and I did not find another individual on the plant that the one was on. So it's going to be a little note just to have it, published in the literature. You never know when someone needs behavior for analysis. But yeah, I love Belitoglossa. They're by far my favorite organism. They're just fascinating. I could spend forever talking about them. But we found a lot of other taxa as well throughout things. We did get a white-lipped mud turtle. These are a species of that we're doing research on. Really, really cool. And this one was notched. This was this BC? This was BC. So if we look on the notch code, let me see if I have a better picture. I do not. It's a little bit hard to tell in here. But on the scutes, so these are the outer shells of the turtle, you'll see a little notch up on this scute. It's the second one, it's B, and there's a tiny notch on the third one. Again, kind of hard to see here, but that's C. So this was turtle BC. This is a turtle I've actually tracked before years and years ago, and we just found it again. So every single time we find a white-lipped mud turtle, we notch it and mark it. That way we can monitor things like growth rate, we can monitor population trends, if we do some good surveys. But yeah, I just thought it was really cool, so found it on my own, dug in a leaf litter, and got him. Now, I'm not going to regale you with all of the different Mexican Smoliscas we found. We got lots of Gulf Coast toads. What I want to talk about are these Violence frogs and the Julien's frogs. This is a project I have been working on for years now. And really, it's more of a, less of a project and more of a system. So the Violence frog, here's a really good example of a textbook violent frog, okay? And it's violent, V-A-I-L-L-A-N-T. So not violence, it's violent. But anyways, these are very large frogs that are very typical, prototypical frogs. They usually have a bright green head, and generally that's the characteristics you look for. However, there is another frog in this system, and that would be the Julien's frog. So let me find a good... Did I miss ID this one? Ha, 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 ha. I put the wrong species down for this one. So this is actually a Julien's frog, like a textbook Julien's frog. Oh my gosh, that's annoying. So the reason I know that, Julien's frog. Oh my gosh. Okay, we're gonna type it up. Lithobates juliani. Okay, boom. So this is a textbook Julien's frog. Put the wrong one. To be fair, I am looking for a lot of different things. So a Julien's frog has this pointed snout, and they have this white lip stripe. It's a really distinct white lip stripe. That's how you typically tell them apart between the Violent and the Julian. However, I say typically because in our system, we have lots of hybrids. And we are fairly certain they're hybrids. So again, big green head, no white lip stripe. The green head isn't a perfect character, but it can be. And then this one right here has the distinct white lip stripe. And then let me find a really clear example. I think there was actually a large one that I put down as just Lithobates. Yeah, so then, but we are finding individuals that look like this, where they have the green head that is only found in the Violent species, as well as that white lip stripe only supposedly only found in the Julien's species. So this has been something that we have been investigating for a long time. I've actually sampled up and down the river for these adults, as well as the tadpoles. The tadpoles, I believe I have surveyed almost 500 at this point, and what you do is you look at the mouth parts. I'll probably do a whole video on just this system at one point or another, probably once we get the publication out. But just know that they are hybridizing. We're almost entirely certain. The only thing we don't have are genetics. Again, I need to bring genetics down to Belize because that will unlock so many cool things. Now, we did find just a bunch of different frogs. I could spend forever talking about all the different ones, but I want to talk about this really cool observation. So this was a ringneck coffee snake. I found 2 of them, and they are, well, we actually haven't noted them this far north in Belize before. We've informally know they're there, but never had really good pictures. And what was so cool, so cool, is that they exhibited death feigning behavior. They faked their death. So this is a really, really cool observation. A really famous example of them faking their death would be the hognose snakes. Those are probably the most famous example of thanatosis is what it's called. And we're actually publishing a little note based off of this. So yeah, it's super cool, noting basically a range extension, the thanatosis, because it hasn't been noted in the literature, as well as the iridescent belly scales, which haven't been noted. Just kind of, I don't know how that's been skipped. Maybe it's not preserved in preserved specimens. But yeah, so publishing a note on this. Whenever we publish it, I'll do a very deep dive into thanatosis, this species, as well as show you some really, really cool video of death feigning behavior. But I'm kind of waiting off on that until, well, we publish the note. And yeah, it was a lot of different frogs. I do INAT every single individual because I'm trying to do it best I can. You know, blue spotted tree frogs. We did get lots of the cloudy snail suckers. These are a really cool group of snakes. They do eat snails. I just posted this on Instagram and it's like going viral because it's cute. And also I do want to show you this really gorgeous toad. I have never seen a Gulf Coast toad be this pretty before. I can't even describe to you that it was red and green and yellow. Like, these pictures do not do it justice. I have really good ones up on my camera, but I haven't pulled the pictures off my camera yet. So I thought this was just really, really fun. I really wanted to show you all of this. Oh yeah, and then one of my last finds there was a really nice size Tommygoth, Yellowjaw, Terciopello, Fertilance, whatever you want to call it. Bothrops asper is the cool, big bad boss snake out there. Of course, one of the most venomous snakes in the region, and the deadliest snake through Central America. We found this at, while we were herping for frogs. They do eat frogs, and I think they also eat fish primarily, but mainly frogs. So they don't really, I mean, they do pose a threat to humans, but this one sat there for like 10 minutes, didn't move an inch. Most of them just stand their ground, which is kind of what makes them deadly, because they're not going to move out of your way. But yeah, this has been a 25 minutes, just about, of me letting my ADHD run wild, and hopefully you learned a few things about some of the snakes. Yeah, I just thought I'd let you know what we're doing here. And yeah, we'll be going right back to doing more of these science communication videos. I've actually been working on a new biostatistics course for biologists, and just really trying to plug away at some of my research. So with this channel, I've had a little bit of time to meditate on things. We will be doing all the science communication pieces still. I love doing them. They're really fun. But we're also going to be interjecting a little more about my own research, interjecting a little bit more about some stuff that I'm doing, what I'm working on, because, yeah, I'm doing it, and I think it'd be fun. So if you like what you see, let me know. Like, comment, subscribe if you're watching till the end. I don't know what you're doing, but I thank you regardless. And, yeah, have a great day.